Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 147 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. I'm your host, 𝐟𝐮𝐲. Thanks for joining me again. We've waited, I think, a little bit over a month, right? Something like that since the last podcast. And I'll probably remind you at the end of the podcast, but it'll still be another month, maybe 5 weeks, I think, till the next one. September 7th, if my notes are correct. But hopefully you've been having a good time, enjoying the summer a little bit. I know we all got to work, but at least the weather's been a little bit better. And hopefully we've left a lot of this firearm-related podcast behind, because we all need that. We all need that rest if we're going to continue to fight these people in perpetuity, which is what we've committed to do. So anyway, all right. I'm not going to talk too much in the monologue right now because my conversation with Tracy Wilson is over an hour. Because the theme of this show was looking back at the past year. Now, obviously, it's not the calendar year; it's sort of the seasonal year or the political year, which ends, in the middle of June. It doesn't come back till almost the end of September, sometime in the middle of September. And what we thought we would do was we'd look back at all the different clips that we had put in the television show that we have and here in the podcast, and just choose kind of a handful of good ones that we should all just kind of watch one more time. So I've assembled all these clips, and we've assembled a little bit of commentary for you as well, just to kind of look back at what we've been through. It's been a I don't know, I would say a difficult year. But anyway, before we get into all that, I'd like to thank the businesses that support the CCFR Radio Podcast. Bullseye North stocks a wide variety of guns, ammo, optics, knives, and accessories from all the big brands and offers free shipping nationwide on orders over $200. Some conditions apply. Sign up for their weekly newsletter to get zeroed in on their weekly deals and live inventory. Bullseye North is your sports shooting superstore. A huge thank you goes out to our great friends over at the Saskatchewan Rivers chapter of Safari Club International. They do a lot of great work over there, including supporting the CCFR and the CCFR Radio Podcast. Check out all their great work at SaskRiversSCI.com. That's SaskRiversSCI.com. CTOMS has been a provider of trauma care training to military and police in Canada for nearly 2 decades. Now this emergency medical training is being made available to a wider audience through CTOMS Academy online courses. This online training is valuable to anyone that pursues sporting or outdoor activities or finds value in being prepared for a crisis. Visit ctomsacademy.skillbuilder.co and use promo code CCFR30 for a 30% discount on all training. And thank you so much to our great friends over at Vortex Canada. They continue to support the CCFR podcast and the CCFR. Can't say enough about them. Check out all their great products at vortexcanada.net. That's vortexcanada.net. Vortex, the force of optics. All right, we are back. So without delay, let's bring on Tracy Wilson and have a little bit of fun looking back on what we've been through in the last year. Fun, if you want to call it fun, I guess. All right, we are back with Tracy Wilson of the CCFR. Wilson!
I've missed hearing that. It's been, what, a whole month?
Yeah, it's been a month.
You know what's funny, actually? You know that my little podcast studio is in the basement of my house. And I came down in here today and I opened the door and I was like walking into things. I'm like, what's happening? It was cobwebs. This is a problem. We haven't done one in so long that I'm infested with cobwebs.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a long stretch to the next one too. But then we'll be back fast and furious for like a year almost.
A year
straight.
Yeah.
But
yes.
Anyway, at least we're back and we have tons of stuff to talk about. I think I'm going to title this thing another mega episode because we have so much content. It's ludicrous, actually.
Yeah, it's like the greatest clips, which is like greatest hits, but in videos.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play some of our best clips from the past year of this kind of tragic year for gun owners. But at the same time, it's when you see people like the liberals, whether they're Marco Mendicino or the anti-gun groups or Pam Damoff or any of these other people, when you see them in their natural habitat, it's quite entertaining. So
Yes.
even though the clips are tragic because they're victimizing gun owners, they're pretty funny when you look at them as individuals. All right. Okay. So these clips are not in any particular order. We're just going to go with
Okay.
whatever we want. And we created this list, and we thought we'd start with one of the funnier ones, which is Gudie Hutchings, who's an
Oh,
MP,
God.
Liberal MP from somewhere in Atlantic, Canada, correct?
Yes, that's right. She's from the Maritimes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they kind of dusted her off and brought her out for, to try to get Eastern Canada on board. And man, you really get a good look at how these people actually are and what their level of competency is. But anyway, check out the clip.
Because I have a shotgun and rifle that I use and 22 gauge that I use for ptarmigan, moose, and black bear. They're traditional guns that I've had, some from my father all my life, and I know many hunters that have the exact. It's like I said to you before, if you have a break action, pump, lever, bolt, those guns aren't on the list, and that's what 99% of hunters actually use. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Gouvernement. Sorry, Mr. Hutchings wanted to.
Any of you here firearms owners? Do any of you here have an FAC, a firearm acquisition certificate? So here's a fact you need to know. There are still 19,000 firearms available for hunters and sport shooters and Indigenous hunters. So there's lots of firearms still available in Canada legally. If you want to shoot ducks, moose, deer, partridge, ptarmigan, there are plenty of legal firearms available for hunters. And I encourage you all. It's a wonderful sport, so take it up and you'll learn something about it.
Gudie Hutchings, ladies and gentlemen.
So here's the problem. Most people who are gun owners now may not have been gun owners 28 years ago and didn't have an FAC. She doesn't even know what a firearms license is called. This is the Liberal expert. She should know better.
Yeah, well, I think what's striking, so there's a bunch of things going on in that video, right? Because I took this big long clip that was floating around that was notorious. We showed it in the TV show, we showed it in the podcast, and I just kind of boiled it down to the top 3 funniest things. So the first thing was, she's like, oh yeah, if you have any of these guns, they're not on the list, which of course, a whole bunch of them were on the list, right? So,
yes.
And it's funny, I didn't have in the clip, but she was complaining about misinformation, people spreading misinformation. And she's like, don't listen to the misinformation. If you have a pump, lever, break action, whatever it was that she said, your gun is not on the list. And it's like, well, you just lied to me while telling me that everyone else was lying. So that was hilarious. And the FAC thing, it's funny because the FAC, as you mentioned, hasn't been around for 28 years. It's a PAL, possession and acquisition license. But I think the striking thing for me was, and I think this is very, it's just such a great example of the kinds of people that we're dealing with. I think maybe that gravitate to politics, is look at the confidence. She's standing there in front of the cameras, just obviously just soaking every second of it up, saying, well, do any of you have an FAC? And it's just like this confident grift while she's telling you completely fabricated 33 decades out of date information. And then talking to everyone else like they're children, like come hither, I have something to say about the firearms program. And of course, she's completely wrong. And then at the end of that thing, she says, well, and it's a fantastic sport, so why don't you just take it up and maybe you'll learn something. But
maybe you'll learn something.
Yeah, like it's the confidence while she's completely telling you something that's completely fabricated. It's untrue, totally untrue. But
and it's funny because if you look at Marco's face during that, it's almost the opposite. He doesn't have the same confidence. He's sort of like, oh God, oh, she's blowing it. Like he knows right away. It's almost like those cartoons when you'd have the giant hook come out. That's what I always envision that.
Well, yeah, and you know what's even just as funny is, and I mean Marco's, he's you can see it in his eyes, right? Like if you watch, I'm not going to play the clip again because I think I did it twice when we actually covered it in the podcast.
Right.
But if you look at his eye, he's like, oh man, oh boy. He's like, I'm supposed to be doing these, having these big gaffes, right? But you know what's funny is I snapped a little pic of Gudie talking, Marco standing there, and 𝐂𝐂𝐷, who is a Liberal MP who probably doesn't agree with most of this stuff, but yet he votes for it. But he's check him out, standing in the back. Look at 𝐂𝐂𝐷's face.
Yeah.
He doesn't know whether to run to, I'm just walking out. I'm give up my seat. I never want anything to do with any of this stuff again. or whether he's, he's like, I just got to keep it going. He just doesn't know what to do.
So bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
bad.
And the other thing that she mentions, I think that I put in the clip, I made those clips a couple of days ago, but the 19, don't worry about it. There's still what do you guys, you tinfoil hatters, there's still 19,000 firearms that you can use for all of these purposes.
Sure there is.
And it's funny because Tim Thurley filed an ATIP to the RCMP. It's like, well, obviously you have this list because it's been referenced many times, and we put the clips of all the different Liberal MPs referencing this 19,000 firearms. I'm not sure, but I think Murray Smith might have said it too. But anyway, I won't say that for sure because I can't remember. And Tim Thurley filed an ATIP, and they're like, oh, there's no list. We don't have any list.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
But yet that number comes from somewhere.
Like maybe that's the number of FRT numbers that existed that weren't included in the ban or something. I don't know, but nobody seems to know where they're coming up with that number. And I know, and and everybody listening to this knows, if you walk in to the average gun shop across Canada, anywhere, you're not going to find 19,000 models of firearms to buy. Like it's just a ridiculous thing to even say. Don't worry about if we ban your stuff. You can just get something else, right?
Oh, yeah. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting 19,000 different models that you could replace these with.
Right.
And the reason why that's sort of really monstrous is they don't know if there's 19,000. They don't know what those guns are. They don't know whether those guns are available for sale in Canada, whether there was ever any imported into Canada. It's just the firearms reference table, or whether any dealers carry any of them. So why would you say it? You'd say it purely for propagandist purposes. You're trying to fool people into thinking like this is no big deal. Us taking like the SKS and the all the Mauser action rifles, no matter what caliber they're in, that's no big deal. There's like tens of thousands of, anyway, it's pretty bad. All right. That was pretty funny, but just as funny is the Liberals listening video that we circulated around. I put that up on Twitter. I think we circulated around on all the social media platforms as well. It was on the TV show. I put them on TV, which is great. They deserve a little bit of extra attention, as Taleeb likes to say. But this is the Liberals listening to the community and to Indigenous voices when they finally decided they had to withdraw this amendment. Anyway, check out the clip. You'll remember it.
But on those particular amendments, I will acknowledge there was not enough consultation. There were not enough conversations with Indigenous peoples across the country. And so we want to make sure we're listening and we get it right.
So how does withdrawing an amendment protect Canadians from gun violence?
Well, we're going to have 4 more meetings. We're going to be listening to people.
Is this an acknowledgement that those amendments were flawed?
No, it's an acknowledgement that we need to be listening to Canadians, and that's what we're going to do.
Did you feel that?
I don't know. That's why we're having 4 meetings to listen.
Firearms we are currently using allows us to maintain our own food security and personal safety. To provide you some examples would be hunters use firearms to deter away aggressive bear in this.
Because we want to listen. So I think it's really important that we are listening, and then we'll come back.
With the background check and renewal every 5 years. A national ban on hunting rifles that allows us to maintain our own food security by hunting and personal security while maintaining a cultural lifestyle on the land is continued colonialism and does not respect our way of life.
We need to listen to people to see where we go forward. So I'm not going to commit to anything that will be done. We're going to listen in those 4 meetings and see what we need to do following that, in consultation with the other parties, in consultation with Indigenous peoples.
Listening across the country and our nation here to come and see our beautiful territory. But hunting is so important. Like I said, we're so isolated. We
genuinely want to listen.
Well, there you have the Liberals listening. Pam said it herself. We want to listen. We felt that we didn't listen enough, and now we're here to listen, especially to Indigenous voices.
Don't forget, the relationship with Indigenous people is the most valuable relationship to the Liberal government. You can tell very clearly by this clip how much they care about what Indigenous voices have to say.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I think the one thing that strikes me is they're so consistently. It's such a watered down term, but two-faced. It's kind of a term we used to use back in the 70s, right? But it's just here's who I'm saying I am, and I'm the exact opposite person. Oh, we're listening. We're having these meetings. We really want to listen. We're listening. Turns out it's time to listen. Couldn't care less. Like, we're not listening to anybody. Like, this is a mandate that came down from Trudeau and the Liberal Party strategists, upheld by the NDP, and this is what we're doing, flat out. So anything between us passing this law and banning all these guns from people who aren't shooting people, to now, whatever happens in the interim is we're just treading water. We're just trying to keep you guys quiet while we do what we're going to do anyway, right? So that's what's so monstrous about that. But yeah, they're not even really skilled liars, in my opinion. Certainly not Taleeb and Pam Damoff, that's for sure.
Well, you'll notice they were both left out of the recent cabinet shuffle. So.
Yeah, I would have thought that Taleeb would have gotten Minister of Housing because of all the 20-plus houses that he flipped. Like, he really understands the real estate market, and I thought they would leverage that expertise and get him in there so we could do some good. You know, it's funny.
The OG house flipper.
Yeah, and he totally is, right? You know, you saw all those videos. I'm not going to drag them up and play the clips, but all those videos of him trying to explain, you know, how that it's people like him are the exact reason that property prices have gone through the roof in the lower mainland of British Columbia because of speculators. It's exactly what he was doing. And it wasn't like, oh, he flipped a house and he made a couple $100,000 and, you know, he got himself ahead a little bit. It's like 21 houses or something like that in the span of a year. I mean, don't quote me on the particulars because I it
was something like that.
Yeah, it was something like outrageous.
He's
like
really ridiculously rich, though, that guy. I think a lot of people may not know that, but he is filthy rich.
Just another liberal, limousine liberal elitist, talking down to the plebs. And you know, it's funny because both my kids are adults, right? And they live in downtown Vancouver, and they're paying for rent. My daughter lives in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. Their rent is $2,500 a month for rent plus utilities. $2,500, and this place it's leaky. It's in a leaky building. They got mice. They got, you know, but they're doing their thing down there, and it's because of speculators actually like Taleeb Nur Mohammed from the riding of Granville that it's like that, you know.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad. Anyway, all right. I'm sure no one can forget my appearance at SECU, where I had to endure not a bunch of very, very important questions about gun control and firearm culture and the connection between firearm-related violence and legal firearm ownership, which is what I flew across the country to testify about so that we could get some good information on the record for this bill. I flew across the country to be grilled by Taleeb Nur Mohammed, no less, or at least that's what he thinks he did on Mean Tweets. Remember that?
On my Mean Tweets. Yeah, speaking of Taleeb and crazy behavior, that was interesting because, of course, we file our expenses, we get reimbursed from the government. Government spends a lot of taxpayer money to put on these SECU meetings. Like, I don't know what one would cost. I think we've guessed maybe 40 or 50 grand to put on a meeting. Incredibly expensive. You're flying all the way across the country to come and testify. And you would think that, considering the importance and the impact of this legislation, that he would have had some really important questions for you. But you would be wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's about mean tweets and trying to kill the messenger, right? Trying to impact our reputation as an organization and my reputation while telling one side of the story. Here's all these mean tweets you sent. It's like, well, were they responses to other tweets, people tweeting at us? Doesn't matter. You're terrible.
Doesn't matter.
Nobody should listen to you. Anyway, just abhorrent behavior. But anyway, enough of that. But here's just a quick little snippet of those clips.
Your Vice President of Public Relations, Tracy Wilson, said on September 21st that she is the gun lobby. Does she speak for your organization?
I would say so, yeah.
I see.
And I would say that's a correct statement. We are the gun lobby, yeah.
Okay, so would you agree with her statement, and by extension, do you believe that it is the view of all of your members that, we've survived 7 years of the most corrupt, divisive, hate-inciting, failed government in the history of our country? Do you feel
that's a pretty accurate statement, I'd say.
So you, sir, then have come here with a political agenda of your own. Is that correct?
I'm coming here to defend the property and my dignity as a Canadian citizen, actually.
I see. But I have to tell you, the fact that you have chosen to come here and have done it on the pretext of the types of text message, the types of tweets, the types of videos that have been put out seeking to harm people who are trying to keep this country safe is really disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. I'll give the witness a chance to respond if you wish.
Well, I'm glad you got that off your chest. So when we entered the arena, I reached out to the Doctors for Protection from Guns, to Polysesouvient, to all these groups and said, hey, our interests actually align. Why don't we work together? And you know what I got? I'm pro-murder. I'm a misogynist. I'm a racist. So much so that those words don't mean what they're supposed to mean anymore. That's how the other side engages. And when we send mean tweets, apparently, it's the end of the world, mean tweets, they're in response to the abuse that we've taken for 7 years. So, I don't know. You can put it all on my shoulders. I can take it.
Thanks, sir.
Well, I think you probably realize now, if you didn't before, the reason why I would never get into politics and why good people typically don't get into politics is quite rare. When you have to rub elbows with people like that, right? Pretty bad.
It will never not be funny to me when he's like, Tracy Wilson said, we're the most corrupt, divisive, whatever. Would you agree with that statement? And you're like, yeah, that would be correct.
Yeah, she's not wrong.
It will never not be funny.
What a guy, right?
Oh,
he didn't think that one through very well. Although I will tell you in retrospect, because I watched the whole video again, and it's not comfortable to watch, right? Because nobody likes being, having a dressing down from anyone, especially when it's truly not warranted. But yeah, he had not one single question of substance. And
no, nothing.
If you think about all the staff and the IT guys on duty and the translators, it's probably $50,000 a meeting.
Oh yeah.
So what? So that he can fluff his feathers up like a peacock and try to chastise the gun lobby in front of the cameras. It's like.
Well, it didn't even work out for him. Like, he looked terrible. Like, it would be different if he really showed you, if he got you, maybe it would be different. Maybe in some bizarre universe it would have been worth it. But it wasn't. He looked like a fool. I think you totally owned him. And, we got this great footage out of it. At the same time, we missed the opportunity to even have a proper conversation about the bill. Like, just total clown show.
Well, that's the part that kind of makes me sad a little bit. Like, I don't care if I win against him or not. It's our opportunity to have a proper discussion about public safety was just gone because these people are literally like giant infants, like infants, and they act like children, right? So it's just the taxpayer got screwed. Canadians that are interested in public safety got screwed, and it's the house flipper that did it, and of course I didn't even play. I'm not going to play the clips of Pam either, because those were actually pretty funny. Maybe I should have done those. Anyway, let's move on, because we still got more. We're just getting started here.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully you can remember Alistair MacGregor from the NDP, very serious party, very, very serious players, trying to play me off in that same meeting as a conspiracy theorist, because, I'm like, these gun bans are wrong. It's wrong to take property from people who haven't done anything. There's been so many bans that happened, right? The 2020 gun ban, the assault-style weapon ban, and, of course, the handgun ban, and then other things that were in Bill C-21. And then we had yet to get to the two amendments, G4 and G46.
Yeah, they hadn't been tabled yet.
Yeah, and then Alistair MacGregor trying to play me off as some conspiracy theorist with his, come on, Mr. 𝐂𝐿𝐿, you still got lots of guns. Anyway, check out the clip and we'll talk about it when we get back.
You have other rifles which are untouched by the OIC. Or
I'm running out of firearms because I lost all the semi-autos, now the handguns.
But come on, Mr. 𝐂𝐿𝐿, there's lots of firearms you could still purchase with your pal.
Whoa. So, what's interesting about that? Again, we said this was before those amendments were introduced. So you're like, hey, I'm running out of guns. And it's true. Like, they just keep banning more and more of our legally acquired guns. And he is just like, oh, come on. You're totally right. He's just tried to blow you off like some nut job conspiracy theorist. And then, interestingly enough, sure enough, they table what would have amounted to the largest hunting rifle ban in Canadian history just a couple short weeks later. And once again, you're proven right.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't think it's anything to be celebrated, but yeah, what a mess. And, we didn't plan to play this clip, but I'm just going to kind of throw this in there now, and I'll go dig it up and stick it in the podcast. But if you remember, when the amendments were actually withdrawn, Peter Julian, flanked by Alistair MacGregor, going, "Yep, for sure, Peter Julian." I mean, Peter Julian is easily as bad as Marco Mendicino or Taleeb.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
yes,
that guy will lie like he's just exhaling. He's a remarkable individual. I don't know why people elect him. Like, just a absolutely corrosive individual. But anyway, if you remember, when those amendments were withdrawn, he jumps out and says, like, none of the Conservatives did nothing, nothing procedural.
Nothing.
Right? And then we put the little compilation together. I'm going to play it right now. Anyway, check it out. This is who we're dealing with here.
Just going to add one thing, that the Conservatives did not lift a single procedural finger through all of this. They fundraised off the amendment, but they did nothing in the House at all. This has all been the NDP's heavy lifting, working with communities and people who felt that they haven't been consulted. Well, first off, I take issue with the idea that the Conservatives had anything to do with the withdrawal of the amendment. The Conservatives did not lift a procedural finger through this whole battle. They were fundraising off it, but Pierre Poilievre did absolutely nothing to actually be the adults in the room and push back against the amendment. This is something I think that the NDP has stepped up on. 𝐥𝐞𝐦𝐻 and Alistair MacGregor, our critic, were the adults in the room.
Would affect the financial impact on the Crown, because the cost of the buyback to buy back these millions of new firearms would be a massive cost to taxpayer. And so I would argue, Mr. Chair, that it's out of the scope of the committee because it does offend the financial. It would require a royal recommendation, and that the committee, it is out of scope because it would have a massive impact on the financial cost of the Crown.
So are you challenging the decision of the chair?
Yes.
Very well. The decision, therefore, is, shall the decision of the chair, the question is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained? If you vote yes, you support the chair. If you vote no, you disagree with the decision of the chair.
Monsieur Fortin.
Oui. Oui.
Mr. MacGregor.
Yes.
Nothing. Like, this guy lies like he breathes. You're 100% right about that. And imagine taking all the credit for everything that happened there. I mean, the credit doesn't lie with any politician. The credit lies with the people who pushed back when they went too far.
Well, and the Conservatives were the first to try to stop it procedurally. Right?
Yes, of course.
And anyway, but yeah, it's like, nope, forget reality. I did it. Nobody else did anything. Just reelect me. You got to pad that pension. I don't want to go to get another job, an actual job in the private sector. I like this. I just get to do whatever I want. Get showered with money. He's on a couple of committees, I think. He's probably making well over 210, 215, maybe a year. Plus,
probably, yeah.
Plus pension, plus expenses, plus staff, 2 offices, flying business class. Like, this is why these people behave like this, because they're like, I don't care whether the country's literally on fire and people being burned to death. I ain't losing this seat, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep it. And we've talked before about how MPs are incentivized, and this is why you see, part of the reason why you see this just disgusting behavior by these people, because it's almost desperate. They're almost desperate. There's like, I am never leaving this life. I deserve this life, Yeah. So anyway, pretty bad. All right, now
pretty rough.
Let's have a look at a little bit of lying Marco, because Marco Mendicino, of course, was, obviously he hasn't changed any. He's just lost his job, and we'll talk about that after. But that guy just tells lies like the rest of them. Just will tell you to your face something that you were reading on a piece of paper that it's just like, no, it says it right here in your bill that this is what happens. It's like, no, don't fall for conservative misinformation. So let's look at Marco. I think I stuck in these clips a couple of things about they're only banning those AR-15 style firearms that have been used to kill the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time, and also warning people about misinformation. And then, of course, Trudeau turns around when they were caught. This was just before they withdrew the amendments, and he's like, we are having to ban some firearms, some guns that people are used for hunting, but you know what? Maybe you can get a replacement that we're okay with, basically. But anyway, check out the clip.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague from the Conservative Party can continue to spread disinformation, but I will tell you very clearly that on this side of the House, we are targeting those AR-15 style guns. We're going to make sure that the language of Bill C-21 aligns with our government's priority, which is to take those guns which were designed for the battlefield. Bill C-21 doesn't target law-abiding gun owners. Look, and I have enormous respect for law-abiding gun owners and have...
We have a lot of respect for hunters, but this bill and all this government's policies target criminal elements, target assault-style guns.
That we are not going to target those guns which are used conventionally for hunting. We are targeting those guns like AR-15 style firearms, which are not targeting hunters. In fact, I met members of the hunting community this morning to assure them that what we are going after are the AR-15 style firearms, which we are not targeting law-abiding gun owners or hunters. We are targeting the AR-15 style guns which have been used to take.
From the beginning, our government was clear that we're not targeting hunters. We're targeting criminal elements. We're targeting assault weapons.
What are you guys doing? A year of challenges and divisive issues that remain unresolved, including the controversial Liberal government's gun ban, with Justin Trudeau admitting that some of those rifles, even those used legally by hunters, will be banned.
There are some guns, yes, that we're going to have to take away from people who were using them to hunt and say, but we're going to also make sure that you're able to buy other guns from a long list of guns that are fine for hunting.
For the record, if you have a gun that you take hunting and you go hunting with, it's a hunting gun. Like, I don't know on what planet these people are. Well, we're not banning hunting guns, but we might have to ban some guns that people hunt with. Like, what? I don't know. It's just... I don't know. These people are crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a, well, you know, in retrospect, and I know it's not the end of the calendar year, but it's sort of the end of the season year for the podcast and our television show. Mm-hmm. But it's been a pretty wild year. Like, it really has been a wild ride. Oh. Hence the fact that we needed to take some time off right over the summer, because we were going pedal to the metal like 7 days a week because of all the stuff that was going on.
It just never ends with these people.
Yeah.
It's constant. And the misinformation, disinformation, all these dirty tricks, like, I've never seen anything like it. It's wild.
It was astounding. This has been a really, you know, and it's funny. I'll dig up a Tracy Wilson tweet. It is truly the worst government in the history of the country, like, as far as deceiving the public. Like, it's disinformation. Yeah. They know it's wrong. You know, these people, it was their bill. It's not like they don't know what guns were banned. You know, they have the Department of Justice there telling them exactly how things are going to be affected. Remember, like, all of the Mauser action, the Parker Hale rifles, like the SKS, like, all that stuff was going to be banned.
They literally put them on a list and then said they're not. No, they're not banned.
Yeah, that doesn't apply.
They're literally on the ban list.
Yeah, this is not the list you're looking for. But anyway, it's sociopathic. But anyway,
it is
psychopathic.
It is.
All right, another clip. Second to last one. Okay. So hopefully people are being entertained by this, and it's not just me and you getting a chance to kind of look at the past year of all the crap we've been through and laughing about it.
It's fun for us. Hopefully it is for them too.
Yeah. All right. This is an interesting clip, and there was a lot, by the way. I had compiled like probably 30 clips, but anyway, we can't be here forever. Taleeb Nur Muhammad decides, I think you got a little bit of insight on this too, decides he's going to try to get on the record what a destructive firearm a 50 cal is. And
weapon of war.
Yeah, weapon of war, and how it is, you know, there's no possible way it could be a hunting rifle, and that it's just too destructive to have in anyone's hands in Canada. So he decides to ask Murray Smith, who is a fellow that worked at the Canadian Firearms Program, Specialized Firearms Services Laboratory, or whatever it is, the Firearms Lab, as we call it. And he thought he would get a gotcha by saying to Murray Smith, like, what if I shot a deer with a 50 cal rifle or something that generates more than 10,000 joules of energy? What would happen to the deer? And he thought that there would be this story painted of this, just like, oh, the deer would be blown as if it had a pipe bomb inside of it, and you wouldn't be able to,
or something.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to recognize it as a deer after, right? But anyway, here's what happened.
So let's say I were to use, let's say I were to fire, I were to fire with 10,000 joules at 200 meters and I were to hit a deer, what would happen to that deer?
Assuming the bullet goes through the vital organs, then it's very likely the deer would be killed. There could be some destruction of the game meat, but that would be very dependent on the construction of the bullet. And so on a deer, the bullet would probably pass through the deer, not causing much more damage than you would expect from an ordinary hunting caliber, simply because of the construction of the bullet.
I think I know where Taleeb got the idea to do this from. And you may remember Pam Damoff reading into the record, I think in SECU committee, some statement that was made by, I think it was a U.S. female Marine or something, who had said that the round from an AR-15 rifle would liquefy your organs, which is just the most ridiculous thing you could possibly say. And I think that's what gave Taleeb the idea to ask Murray Smith this, like, what would happen if I shot a deer with a 50 cal? And of course, Murray gave the honest answer. Well, it might die.
Yeah, the deer would likely be killed, and there may be some spoiling of the game meat.
Yeah, but which could happen with any other caliber as well.
It would probably just pass through.
That was so, not the answer he was looking for, and anticlimactic, and I think he was just like, oh.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Talib fails again. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. It's like, give me the sad trombone.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, hilarious.
Knows.
All right, our last clip. And then we have some news to talk about. Our last clip is just recently appeared on the podcast, and I put that on TV as well because I thought it really needed to be spread around a little bit and get people seeing actually how these people, meaning anti-gun groups and or liberals, but in this case anti-gun groups, are playing this game. They're not playing the game like, okay, well, here's what the statistical information says. Here's what's morally right. Here's how we've considered the other side. It's not a conversation like that. It's propaganda. It's deception. And then they take absolutely no accountability for it. So this is 𝐂𝐂𝐅𝐑 𝐌𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫. You know her, you love her from Polysesouvient, and she is describing in the press conference how assault rifles are readily available to buy in Canada today, and how it looks like they're not going to be banned by Bill C-21. Anyway, check it out.
We are stunned today by what we perceive to be a total capitulation of the Trudeau government before the NDP's duplicitous stand on banning assault weapons. The weak amendments that are substituting G4 and G46 do not constitute a ban on assault weapons. The amendments that are being proposed, it's a watered down definition who have fought to ban military assault weapons in Canada. The reason why we bring up the NDP is because despite saying over and over that he supports the ban on assault weapon, when asked what to do about the current assault weapons that are on the market, that were exempted or escaped the criteria of the 2020 OICs, he never answered the question. Instead, he answered with a process, the process of pre-authorization, putting more responsibility on the manufacturer, which is, so he did not answer the question about current assault weapons. Ensure that we actually have a comprehensive ban on assault weapons. We believed them, and we were lied to again. This is not a ban on assault weapons. At this stage, we have lost that battle, and Canada will not have a ban on assault weapons. because it's true that there are some assault weapons that are used for hunting, like the SKS, which is in fact quite popular. But it doesn't mean it's a hunting rifle. It means it's an assault weapon that's used for hunting.
Oh yeah, assault weapons, right? So it's funny because after that, we put that video out. They clearly saw it, and then they tweeted something about some American, like some Boston newspaper or something like that, calling centerfire semi-automatic rifles assault rifles, and they said, "Oh, look out! The CCFR is going to attack this newspaper for calling them assault weapons or assault rifles or something," right? And it's like, well, you can make fun of that all you want, but you know, they're sitting there and they're deceiving everybody. They're trying to convince people that don't know any better that there are assault weapons available for sale in Canada, and the only group that can stop these terrible assault weapons is Polysesouvient and the Coalition for Gun Control and the Danforth Families Group and the Liberal government, aided and abetted, of course, by their little servants, the NDP, right? But, you know, and they play this off as if it's trivial. It's not trivial. It's not trivial at all. And they call us spreaders of misinformation. It's hilarious.
This is an intentional, incitement of fear. You know, they were having, like where I come from, we call that a full-on hissy fit. So they're throwing a hissy fit because amendments G4 and G46 had been removed. And of course, they were furious about that loss, right? And that, you know, that's it. We're going to stomp our feet and freak out because now assault weapons are just going to be available and legal. And it's so wrong and just so misguided that I don't think Canadians are falling for it anymore. Like, I really don't. Well, and that was just treacherous behavior from these people.
Well, we're going to talk more about that after, whether or not Canadians are falling for it or whether or not it's working for the Liberals anymore, like they thought it was going to. But when it comes to Polysesouvient and 𝐂𝐂𝐅𝐑 in particular, they say all this inaccurate stuff. They fear-monger people. They try to fool them to get them so scared that they'll support whatever they do. And it's funny, even if Bill C-21 passes, which of course it will pass if the Liberal government stays intact, end of story, because they have the votes. And even if they got the prohibitions that they had always wanted, do you think for a second that Polysesouvient would just shut down their Twitter feed? They just delete it?
No. They'll never stop.
No.
They'll never stop.
No.
They're always pushing for more and more.
Yeah.
And even no matter how much the Liberals give them, and they've given them a lot. I mean, look at the state of firearm ownership now compared to 8 years ago. They're still threatening the Prime Minister that they won't invite him to their annual memorial, and they're still slamming the Liberals. I used to tag Marco all the time in tweets saying, "You're never going to satisfy these people. They're never going to be happy. It's not enough."
Yeah, well, it's interesting from almost a societal perspective. If you cater to unreasonable people, it will not solve your problem. Like they will never stop. That's why you have to be really, really careful if you're in any kind of political capacity, who you apologize to, because the mob will rise up. Typically, these social media things, I know I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit, but it just applies so well here, is the mob rises up, and any social media firestorm usually has about a 72-hour shelf life. And it just kind of goes. It'll get drug up once in a while, and that'll be good for about 6 hours. A couple people will retweet it, a few people will talk about it or share it on Facebook or whatever, and it's gone. And it's gone. But if you appease those people, like I thought, you know, when we had our little controversy, I thought long and hard. I wasn't going to just run out and start apologizing. You know, you have to think about that stuff clearly, because if you apologize, they won't stop anyway. It doesn't mean anything to them because
they're not going to forgive you anyways.
Yeah, they're irrational, unreasonable people. And so if you try to deal with unreasonable, irrational people in a rational manner, you'll never, ever find any kind of middle ground. So as much as as I'm always offering, like, hey, if you want to let go of all this garbage behavior, we are more than happy to forgive and forget everything. And let's just sit together. Because at the end of the day, and we'll talk about this more in a second too, Canadians are literally dying out there because of the misguided approach and horrific policies of the Liberal NDP government. And of course, cheerled by groups like Polysesouvient, and the rest. And the Docs for Protection from Guns. I almost forgot. The docs, I check their feed, I don't know, probably once every 2 months because I keep forgetting about them. But I'll scroll through, and you know what? They got tons of stuff. Assault weapons this, assault weapons that. You know, C-21 was supposed to ban assault weapons. Assault weapons are still legal. Like, they do it too.
Oh, yeah,
like,
they're
they are the
pushing
biggest propaganda group ever, I tell you, those guys. Anyway.
Their lobbyist just wrote an opinion piece that Katie Telford shared, actually, the other day.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
But like the corruption is mind blowing. It's beyond anything we've ever seen, I think, in Canada before. The corruption is just incredible. And look at the little pool that all these people are swimming in. They're all sort of related to each other, either through you know previous employers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them, and you know it's funny because I had an idea the other day, and I might as well say it right here on the podcast, is about making a short length but exhaustive documentary on the Doctors for Protection from Guns, because they have a pretty lengthy track record in doing a lot of disingenuous things. So I'm considering doing that, like full production.
I think we should.
So yeah, we'll see. But their consultant and a few of their consultant's friends have popped up in a few places too that people may not know about. And I thought of sharing that stuff too, since he was taking a little bit of heat for that. But yeah, these people, ethics don't mean anything, you know, to them, right?
No.
They do whatever they have to do. They get their consulting fees and they just move on to the next disaster. It's pretty bad, because at the end of the day, real people in their lives that don't have any connection to politics whatsoever are being affected by what they're doing. Like that's the part that gets the outrage from me.
Yeah.
People that don't deserve it. All right. Anyway. All right. We got some news items to talk about. It's been, I don't know, like 40 minutes here, but you know, we have one podcast to do for the next month, so we might as well get it all out. The best news ever. Marco Mendicino lost his ministerial post.
Marco, you're fired.
Yay.
Yeah.
You're fired.
Yay. So, yeah, it just seems like they keep putting up all these different public safety ministers, and we just keep knocking them down. Not necessarily you and I, but anyways, he went down in flames for sure. In fact, Marco Mendicino didn't receive, like, he was completely kicked out of cabinet. So, yeah, he got nothing. Dominic LeBlanc is our new public safety minister. Interestingly enough, they just sort of took public safety, which is a pretty important file. Like, there's a lot of stuff that falls under the purview of the public safety minister, but they took that public safety file and just slapped it on top of Dominic's already existing profile. So to me, that's kind of weird, because it used to be public safety and emergency preparedness. Then when they fired Bill, they split it off, gave him emergency preparedness, and had Marco focus just on public safety. There was a lot of gun control stuff and bans and stuff they wanted to get through and use for political clout. So it deserved its own ministry aside from emergency preparedness. And now it's sort of gone the other way, where they've just taken it, thrown it in somebody's locker with the rest of their homework that they're already working on. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I've done some digging around. LeBlanc has not said a whole lot about gun stuff. I think back in 2009, there was some commentary on the long gun registry. Even then, it was pretty vanilla. I don't know. I think he's got a lot of other things he needs to focus on, like election interference and the public inquiry that's being called for and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the good news is Marco's fired.
Yeah, well, and there's a couple other things about LeBlanc. Is he's more of a serious, less of a troll. You know, I think
he's the fixer.
Well, for one, Marco, he didn't get another post. He's got nothing. He's a backbencher now, which he's a
backbencher.
He belongs to be in the last row, number one, and number two, he's beneath being an MP anyway. So I don't know. He really screwed everything up, and he got what he deserved, at least at some level. He deserves to lose his pension, in my opinion. He's done some really terrible things.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, whether or not he says he's going to run again or whatever, I think what happened was he got kind of used up and thrown away. Like, he was a Crown prosecutor in his previous life before politics. Imagine taking, your law degree and all the, the credibility behind your name and just throwing it out the window, doing Trudeau's bidding, and then you're completely kicked off the school bus. Like,
yeah, well, he had it coming. It's like, well, if you don't have to lie. Like very seldom, I think in life in general, you don't have to tell these monstrous lies. But he was just, it was a reflex for him. I think that's why he fit in so well. But they've now put somebody that's a lot more serious in the role. Plus, there hasn't been a lot of talk about gun control. I think maybe, and we've talked about this, maybe the Liberals are like, you know what? We're not winning on gun control. It's actually hurt us.
No.
So pass Bill C-21. Let's just be quiet about it. Get somebody in there that's not going to be, defaming people and fabricating stuff and lying as a reflex and running around completely incompetent, looking like a complete idiot, right? Like the last two guys. We need to clean this portfolio up because we're hemorrhaging votes. I don't know. That's sort of what I'm thinking.
That's exactly what I think too. I mean, Dominic's pretty suave guy. He's pretty well respected. He's the opposite of what Marco sort of became, which was this, shrieking troll of a guy saying really untrue things into the media and to everyone else. So yeah, we'll see where we go.
Wild. One thing I do take a little bit of pleasure in is Marco writes himself a, hey, sorry, I got to go, folks, letter, some farewell letter on his Twitter feed, pinned it to the top of it. And when I caught wind of that, I was like, I think I need to go over there and leave a comment of my own. So I retweeted it with, I forget what I said, but just like, basically 3 lines that encompassed everything I've just said about him. And if you look down at that tweet that he's pinned, he's just being savagely ratioed, like what probably one of the most unpopular ministers of public safety since Bill Blair.
Well, and it's interesting. I'm looking at the tweet right now. He's got it pinned to his profile. It's got 561,000 impressions. So that's over 500,000 impressions.
That's huge, man.
Huge. So that's been seen by a lot of people. 1,183 likes. And one of those is mine. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in our position, gun owners, who are just happy to see him leaving, gave it a like. Like I gave it a like. Yeah, you're out of here, buds. I like it.
That's probably half of the likes are people like, I like this message.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't think people actually liked his, we're liking the fact that he's got fired. And 3,500 comments. So just a, super triple ratio. It's hilarious. And then you click on it. And I mean, I have a pretty spicy Twitter feed. I'm not going to apologize for it because I usually mean everything I say. I always do. But the comments on here are just wild.
Read a couple.
Okay, I'm just going to skim them real quick. What are you planning on doing about Paul Bernardo? Marco, you lied repeatedly and deceived without remorse. Oh, good. Seeing you sent Constable Ryan to my door, I will make sure to send the solicitor to yours. An election is coming. You're a rat running from the sinking ship. Loser. Get lost, you filthy, lying scumbag. And that's me being polite. This is not me talking. These are replies, right?
This is his audience.
Yeah, this is his audience. You lied, and then lied about you're not lying, and then you got caught lying. Under your watch, violence has spiraled out of control, including gun crime. This is because you're a liar. It just goes on and on. Good riddance.
Well, the verdict is in.
I hope you get a fair trial.
Yeah. The verdict is in. He's a liar. Nobody ever liked him. I don't even Polysesouvient never liked him.
No,
I don't think.
No, he wasn't a super likable guy.
No.
And I think for me, it stemmed way back. I had a little bit of hope for him after Bill, because Bill was just,
He's a lunatic.
Wild.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So then we get Marco, and I'm like, well, he's a kind of this younger MP from Toronto. He's a family guy, Crown prosecutor. Maybe this is the guy. And oh my God, was I ever wrong about that? And I knew it from the moment he did that political blind date with MP Glenn Motz, where they, took a turn going to each other's neighborhoods. And Glenn took him out to, I think, a hunt and fish and game, range. And he wouldn't even touch a gun. I understand if you're not really into guns or whatever, most people, it's I'll try it. And then if you decide it's not for you, then so be it. This is literally for a TV show. And he couldn't even touch it. And it's just, I don't know, man.
Yeah, there's something very wrong with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so next news item, let's move on. We could talk about Marco all day.
I know. He's gone. He's fired. Let's move on.
Don't get me started on Bill Blair. That'll be another 35 minutes. StatCan has come out with a crime severity index, and firearm-related murder, firearm-related homicide, is through the roof, the highest numbers that we've ever seen in the history of statistic taking in Canada in 2022, just last year.
So what you're saying is after 8 years of liberal gun control and gun bans and freezes and all this crazy stuff they've been doing to gun owners, it hasn't made any difference. In fact, things are worse. Yeah. It's like they might have focused on the wrong people.
It has made a difference. It's gone through the roof. Violence has gone through the roof. And part of that, I think, is the just the fact that all the resources, whether they're man hours or billions of dollars or just attention, just focus, all on licensed gun owners, sport shooters and hunters, basically, and nothing on the crime. In fact, on the other side, the Liberals have passed laws to treat criminals better than they did before and allow them to get out of jail, stay out of jail, even when they are on charges of murdering police officers. They can get out on bail.
Oh yeah, they've loosened up bail. They've loosened up, taken away mandatory minimums, like all kinds of crazy stuff. It's
and if it's funny, they talk about mandatory minimums, like, well, they're unconstitutional. It's like, well, fight the courts. Fight the courts.
Not all. There's other mandatory minimums that they leave in place. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Fight the courts. They'll fight the courts. They're fighting us pretty good. They had the will to fight us, but they didn't have the will to fight against violent offenders getting out of jail, on bail when they're committing murder. But anyway, I've got some interesting stats because I looked at those numbers. Didn't have a lot of time, but I got some interesting stuff here I want to share with everybody. So I looked at these tables. So firearm incidents, just the incidents, are the highest they've been since 2014. That was the year before the Trudeau Liberals came into power. Okay. Firearm-related homicide in 2022, 342, which was the highest in recorded history in Canada. 342 firearm-related homicides. So, and they've started keeping those records in 1974. So it's been a while, 50 years. Now, the next record holder from 2022, right, that we had that data we just talked about, 342 murders. The next contender was 2021, the year before, at, did I write that? Oh, I didn't write that value, but that was the next highest year ever, was just the previous year. So what does that tell you? It tells you that 2022 was not an anomaly. It's a trend. It's funny, and you and I watched all these Senate hearings for Bill C-71, and StatCan was there. It's like, oh, this is a trend. It's like, yeah, you're damn right, it's a trend, and it's still going through the roof. It's accelerating, in fact. And then the next highest year after that was in 1975, not in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. No, in 1975. And then the next place, which I think is fifth place, was 2020. So out of the last 3 years that we have data from, were the records other than one other year in Canadian history. Like, that's how bad the problem is. Like, that's the level of the issue. Incredible. So Liberals are breaking all the records here.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's a function of a lot of things, right? But most, it's funny because I had to have a conversation about this, and the reason why it's like that, the reason why is that the root causes of violence, the predictors of violence, have gone unaddressed. They were only addressed as an afterthought. When they started attacking gun owners, we were making light of that. The Conservatives were. Everybody was like, hey, you're doing the opposite of what you should be doing right now. Your priorities are 180 degrees from where they should. And then they were starting to hemorrhage politically, and they're like, okay, well, Safe Communities Funds, throw $250 million at that. And they haven't thrown anything, I don't think, but make a funding announcement because we're looking really bad, right? Somehow somebody implement 988 for suicides. because we're looking really stupid out here. It was
Yeah, it
always
took
an
them years to
afterthought
do that.
to cover their tracks.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, this is what you have when you have upside down world. So anyway, very interesting. Like, I find that data to be really interesting and very instructive. It's gone up.
Well,
it's almost a straight line upwards.
It's actual data too.
Yeah.
Like the Liberals' record on public safety speaks for itself, and it's a train wreck.
Yeah, and
It's horrible.
And not to beat the point to death, but you got Bill C-71. You had checking a license before transfer. You have the 2020 gun ban. You have the handgun ban. You have C-21 being debated, right? So lots of attention. People know exactly how to slow down violence. They're not going to do it, right? You had all this stuff and everything in between, right? The fight about the nullification of registration certificates. You got all this, and crime has skyrocketed higher than in the history of the country. So what kind of genius do you need to be to figure out that licensed gun owners aren't the reason why we have firearm-related violence? So anyway. One thing I did want to give a heads up to is the Fraser Institute came out with an article. I think it was written by Gary Mauser. I skimmed it. It was really good. Lots of links. So I'll put a link in the description below for that. But it's a whole bunch of common sense with data linked to it, all in one article. So if you're interested in kind of getting the whole kind of big picture of what's going on in Canada as far as gun control is concerned, and whether or not it's a benefit to public safety and what impact it has on gun owners, you can go there to check that out. So we're going to spend too much time on that. All right. Last but not least, Inspector Proctor and DEMQ as well, from the Toronto Police Service, held a press conference, and they confirmed what pretty much everybody knows. And we're going to talk about this just a little bit, but here's the clip. They're saying that 3% of the crime guns that they've recovered that could be traced were from domestic sources. Not 50%, not 60%, like Ralph Goodale said, 3%. Anyway, here's the clip, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Gun violence continues to be one of the most significant public safety issues and concerns in every major North American city, including right here in Toronto, where the vast majority of gun violence is perpetrated by people who are unlawfully in possession of illegal firearms.
But what I find most striking, in the province of Ontario, a mere 3% of traced firearms were legally owned in Canada prior to becoming crime guns. 3%. This puts into perspective how serious the illegal firearm trade has become across this city, province, and country.
That is really valuable information. And when the E says domestically sourced, that doesn't mean illegal gun owners are, giving criminals their guns or using their guns in crimes. That domestically sourced just means that they were sourced within Canada. They weren't, smuggled or imported into the country. That could be a result of theft from a person, theft from a business, which of course those gun owners would then be victims of that crime. They could be, manufactured in Canada, like illegally manufactured, homemade. Like domestically sourced just means they were sourced in Canada, not necessarily, that legal gun owners were providing them. I saw some debate about that online. But yeah, so 97% of crime guns are being smuggled in, and this government has spent 99.9% of the focus on the wrong people.
Well, that's the interesting part, right? If you think about it, like 97% of the focus is on the 3% of where those guns are coming from, and 3% of the focus is on the criminal element, right? Just very. I think that's very interesting. But yeah, what you said was really important. And there's one more point actually. If you always have to look at the qualifiers, right? So they said of guns that could be traced. Well, if there's a handgun that originated in Canada, you'd have probably you're a lot more likely to be able to trace that firearm because of the records that we have here. So we don't know. Maybe it's actually 0.5%. We just don't know that. If you look at the total, because if they could trace all of them, right? So the 3% is statistically, it's likely to be actually high.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because if there is no way or ability to trace it, it doesn't mean it automatically came from Canada. It, most times would mean the opposite. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, very interesting. And it's funny because I remember when Taleeb and I were having our exchange, He's like, well, do you disagree with police across the country telling us that they need, Bill C-21 to keep Canadians safe? And I'm like, I can't speak for them, and I don't know what the context of any of those things, any of those comments came from.
I think we put out enough videos where police were opposing the majority of liberal gun control policy. That's not what they want. They want to catch bad guys and have them just stay in jail, right?
There were plenty of police that opposed it in the stinking Senate meetings, man.
Yes. He's like gaslighting you.
And he's like, well, do you disagree with this fabricated factoid that I just came up with? Do you, Mr. 𝐂𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻? Anyway, okay, let's talk about a couple of fun things, and we got to wrap it up. I think we've been at it for like 50 minutes, so this podcast is going to be like an hour and 15 minutes probably. So
it's the only one all month, so it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, give us a pass, everyone. All right. Okay. So you just came back this past weekend from the Woodstock Ladies' Day. What went on there?
Yeah, I went out to Woodstock, New Brunswick. Always a good time out there. The Woodstock Pistol and Rifle Club does such a good job. Like, these are huge ladies' days, like 80 to 100 girls at these. I think the previous year we had like 107. Massive ladies' days, just so well put on. They have so many experienced volunteers coming out to help. I go out there, they just treat me like gold while I'm out there. Big catered lunch for the girls. We actually had the local MP come and speak to them at lunch, and we gave away prizes, but I've been posting up pictures and videos from it. Just an incredible time. And of course, it's always great to be out on the East Coast. They're just so fun. And I had a lobster roll, so I'm really excited. But speaking of ladies' days, this coming weekend on Saturday, I'll be at Lower Trent Valley Fish and Game Club for a ladies' day there. And then next week, which is the week of August 8th, I'm not sure if you're watching this on the TV show, I'll be heading out to Selkirk, Manitoba for IPSC Nationals. That's the handgun championships. So Canada's best and brightest handgun athletes all in one place for 5 days of competition, a big awards dinner at the end of it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to going out there. The CCFR is a proud national sponsor.
Yeah, IPSC's always really great to us, so I can't tell, I can't say how appreciative I am enough of not only IPSC Canada, but every IPSC provincial organization, and that support goes a long way, and
it does.
We're able to smack a lot of people in the head with that support too, right? So, which is our mandate at some level.
Yeah,
and also,
I'm really excited. I love going out there, and it's fun because it's a national championship. You've got shooters from every province and territory.
Whoa! Okay, now that you've collected yourself, took a couple of hits off the oxygen mask.
Kill Taka! I'm going to kill you.
All right. And I think you only had, I don't know, one other thing you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I wanted to say the really cool thing about going to IPSC Nationals is you get to spend time with athletes from every province and territory across the country, and they all come out, and it's like days long. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm excited to go. So I'll be heading there next week.
That is awesome. All right. Well, we better wrap it up because it's been a really long, probably the longest episode we've ever done. But hopefully it was a lot of fun for everybody, seeing all those old clips, kind of looking at where we've come from. And, one last thing I'll say is, it's August basically now. So probably within the next month or two, we would expect to see a verdict from our massive lawsuit against the federal government over the 2020 gun ban. So hopefully we'll see that relatively soon. And hopefully we have some measure of success. So those decisions,
I think we will.
Yeah, those decisions are complicated. You don't win on everything, but I'd like to think that we would win on a couple of items. So, stay tuned for that. Anyway. All right. Well, thanks for the update. I know you've got a lot of CCFR work to do, even though it's summer. But I guess we will see you in about 4 or 5 weeks on the next one.
We'll see you then.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 147 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Now, that was a really long talk with Tracy, what I would consider a mega episode. Sometimes you see I put those in the description to pre-warn the viewer that it's going to be long. But I think I think we got a little bit of fun in this episode. There's a lot of clips. We've been through a lot this past year. And, interestingly enough, the clips that I put together to kind of form up this episode are about half the clips we have just from the past, like year and a half or so, something like that. It's just been crazy. And oddly enough, as you know, we have a television show on Wild TV called CCFR Radio on the Air. If you've seen it, it's kind of a wildly condensed version of the podcast that takes place over the span of 22 and a half minutes with 3 breaks. So it's the TV show is difficult, but in that format, it's really hard to get anything. In that format, we want to do the same show, basically. We had time for 4 clips. So you guys got your bang for your buck online, because there's no limit to anything online. So as I may have said, I hope it was entertaining, at least at some level, seeing what we've been through and all the bad behavior on behalf of the Liberals and the NDP. I mean, and the Bloc too. I didn't put any clips of the Bloc, and there were a few that I could have put in, but anyway, hopefully it was entertaining. The next episode will be coming to you on or about September the 7th. So that episode might be a little bit aged, maybe by 4 or 5 days, because that's a really tough week. After we get out of summer, we get back into September, like right out of the gates, and it's pedal to the metal again, because I have to produce a television show and the podcast in a week. And in the same week, on the Wednesday, I have to fly to Quebec for this Conservative Party of Canada convention. And then we're there for 2 days, and then fly from there to Toronto to Mississauga for TACCOM. So you'll see us at TACCOM, I think, somewhere around Saturday afternoon, and the Sunday we'll be there. We'll talk more about that in the next episode, just to give you a heads up. But yeah, that'll be a whirlwind week. So I have high hopes for episode 148, but I don't know what that's going to look like, because it's a crazy week there. Anyway, enough of that. That's when we will be back. And after that, of course, we'll be coming to you every 2 weeks as usual, with rare exception, all the way around again, the sort of the seasonal calendar, not the annual calendar, but all the way around again to the middle of June, every 2 weeks, like we have been. I think that the podcast has become a kind of a staple in our community, and I just want to say that I really deeply appreciate all the support that all of you have given to the CCFR, and that's about it. So over the next month, try to get a little bit more rest. I mean, we're all still working. I know you got to work, but try to get a little bit of rest. Take a break from politics while there's not much going on, because when September comes, we're hitting it hard again, and we're going to be throwing everything we have at these people as they try to interfere with our ability to legally own and use firearms. So anyway, we'll be back in about a month. Take care. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you then.
This is another episode of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.